On this episode, we're talking all about EMPs, aka electromagnetic pulses. Hey everybody, this is Scott Hughes, and this is episode 1 of the Pondering Prepper show, and today is all about EMPs. With the growing threat from North Korea, be it an EMP or nuclear attack, we thought it would be fitting to launch our new Q&A show with some relevant topics. Let me start real quick with what to expect from these shows. We are aiming to air a new episode of the Pondering Prepper every Wednesday, where we're going to be answering your questions. These questions have been submitted by you through email, Facebook, and Twitter. If you didn't know that you could submit questions, make sure you're following us on Facebook, Twitter, and sign up via email. All the links are in the description below, so you can sign up, follow, whatever, so you can keep track and submit your questions. Now, going into this, I really didn't know what to expect as far as how many questions we would get, and right out of the gate, we have over 30 questions, which means this topic alone is going to be broken into a multi-part show. My aim is to keep these shows somewhat short, say less than 12 minutes, minus this little intro part of this episode. This means we're going to be answering probably at most 10 questions, and that depends on the depth of the answers that we go into. Okay, enough of that. Let's get into today's show. Oh, real quick, one more thing. For this episode, I collected the questions, but I forgot to save the person's name who asked them. So moving forward, I should be able to save them and address them so you'll know who asked the question before we get in, before we get into it. And their questions will pop up somewhere on the screen, so you better read it. Okay, let's get into it. Our first question is, are fireproof gun safes EMP proof? And they were referring to the larger safes that you can get like at the outdoor stores, like at Cabela's or Field & Stream or Gander Mountain if they're still around. And the quick, short answer is yes, sort of. As long as the door is shut and the stuff on the inside doesn't come into contact with any metal surface, then yes, everything on the inside should be okay. However, the safe itself won't be as lucky, especially if it has an electronic keypad. You can count it out. The keypad will be fried. Having said that, though, Liberty Safe Company, I was reading that their safes do come with an EMP-resistant keypad. So if you want to spare the extra money, get the Liberty Safe. They're great safes to have anyway. But if you're looking for a safe to store your stuff in, Liberty Safe, that's it. You got it. So you'll still be able to access electronically the stuff inside the safe. And our next question is, do EMPs affect all computers or just certain types? EMPs affect all computers. So the definite answer is yes. Regardless of how big or small an EMP is, it can and will most likely fry your computer, regardless of the brand, whether it's a Mac or a PC or whatever else people are out there using. The electronics inside a computer are very small, but still contain many of what are referred to as loops. Inside an integrated circuit chip, there are resistors etched into the material. These are very small loops, but semiconductor material is sensitive. A strong EMP will burn out the circuit chip without a doubt. Up next, we were asked, let's see, check my notes. We were asked, if you have a cellar that is not enclosed in concrete, will it provide any safety? Of course, it's going to provide you safety, but no, it's not going to provide safety for your electronics. Even if it had cement or concrete, it's not going to protect it either way. Concrete walls do not offer any kind of EMP protection. You would have to line your concrete cellar with metal to form a type of Faraday cage inside your cellar to protect anything inside there. Up next, the person asked, how long will an EMP last? My understanding of this question, because there's two different ways it could go, is how long will the effects from an EMP last, not how long the actual EMP blast will last. But either way, I'm going to answer the question both ways. First, the initial blast or pulse from an EMP is a single blast, right, or a single pulse lasting less than a second. And that's known as an E1 component. It causes instantaneous high voltage spikes in electronic conductors. The strength of these spikes depends on how many things, including the size of the object, whether it was energized at the time, any shielding, and position relative to the EMP burst. Then there's the E2 component, which is similar to lightning, only far, far weaker. It is only considered a threat because the E1 component may have damaged the electronics, leaving them vulnerable to lesser threats. This would also last less than a second. And then finally you have the E3 components. It's similar to a solar-induced geometric storm. These can last several minutes. They aren't really a threat to electronics that are not connected to an external long line, like electric cables or phone lines, those kind of things. The E3 component possesses the biggest threat to the actual grid itself through the large transformers that run along it, and not so much of the electronic components on the other side of it. Okay, that brings us to our fifth question. And they asked, what is the cheapest and best homemade Faraday box, and what should you put in it? So there are tons of ways to make your own Faraday cage. He said Faraday box, I'm going to say Faraday cage, but you need to make sure that you've done your research so that you can be certain that whatever you store inside truly is safe from an EMP pulse. That said, you can use something as simple as heavy-duty aluminum foil, cardboard boxes, and a galvanized steel trash can. And the process to do this is fairly simple. You start by wrapping each item you want to protect in several layers of cloth, at least 3 layers. This helps isolate the item from the foil. Next, you want to wrap the item with plastic wrap, like saran wrap, or place it in a plastic bag. Then add 3 layers of aluminum foil, minimum. And this is heavy-duty aluminum foil, the thick stuff. You want to use your hands to kind of mold, the foil around the object, making sure that there are no holes or rips in the foil. And then now you want to take that item and place it in a cardboard box. Then wrap the cardboard box with at least 2 more layers of foil. When you do this, you want to make sure that no foil from the outside of the box touches any of the foil from inside the box, which you have it wrapped and layered several times so it shouldn't. Then you can store the box off the ground. Anywhere you want to, as long as it's off the ground, it's fine. And that's about as cheap as you're going to get. You likely have those supplies laying around your house. If you're looking for something ready-made, I've linked in the description under some ready-made Faraday bags and boxes, so you can check them out if you want to take the easy route and just order some off of Amazon. That's sometimes the best route, because you know those are most likely certified and guaranteed to protect your gadgets, whereas if you do it yourself, you make a mistake, then your stuff is fried. So that brings us to, what do you want to store in a Faraday cage? And you're going to put anything electronic or electrical that you want to use after the blast. This can be a GPS, like a wristwatch, and handheld radio, a ham radio, a weather radio, flashlight, extra batteries, maybe a solar charger, even a cell phone. Yeah, the towers will likely be down, but just in case they're not, a cell phone can be handy for getting in contact with authorities or with other people. Okay, and that brings us to our next question. If the car or electronic is turned off, then will they work after an EMP strike? Let's start with the car. So if your car isn't running when it's hit with an EMP, will it survive the blast? This is a little tricky, because some old school answers were basically, if your car has any electronic component at all, it's not going to work, which is why many people in the survival community say you should have a pre-1980s vehicle. There have been a lot of simulations done on this, and none of them have been conclusive enough, one way or the other, to say yay or nay. So I can say that pretty much all vehicles rely on fuel, and after an EMP, the production of fuel will cease, because the fuel production plants rely on electricity. All of that stuff are going to be fried. So really, if you have a fuel-based vehicle, then it doesn't really matter, because once you're out of gas, you're out of gas, unless you can find some more somewhere. So now, what about electronics that aren't plugged in or turned on when the blast hits? So if we think about how an EMP works, we know that it will be strongest at the point of impact. Our point of impact is obviously in the atmosphere, and if you happen to live directly under the point, pretty much everything you own that relies on electricity or batteries is toast. It's fried. You can forget it. However, the further you move away from the impact zone, the less likely your components are going to be affected. This means turning off and unplugging your components, make them just a little bit more safer, but not 100% protected, depending on how far away you are from the point of impact. Our next person asks, can we expect more than one EMP at a time? They also want to know if after an hour, a day, or a week, is it possible to be hit again? So the easy answer here is yes, we can absolutely be hit with more than one EMP at once, or over a span of time. This can be either man-made or a solar flare from the sun. It's hard to say whether or not an enemy has the ability to strike with more than one, but it's always better to assume in this case that they do have the ability, and if they strike once, are willing to strike again. Now, regarding a solar flare, Mother Nature is Mother Nature, and if she decides to hit the Earth with massive or multiple flares, then we need to be ready. This means once the initial flares are over, you don't want to immediately get all your electronics out, power them up and start using them. Give it some time. Make sure that the threat is gone, everything's kind of settled down. Do what you can without your electronics. Get to where you want to go. Whatever it is that you need to do, that you can do without opening that Faraday cage and getting that stuff out, just to prolong it, because you don't want to bring them out. And the next thing you know, bam, we're hit again. So the last question we're going to answer today is, if my bug out location is X feet underground or in a cave, is the equipment protected? And I'm guessing X is a variable, which, how many number of feet. So there's not a real easy answer to this, because the depth really depends on the amplitude of the pulse and the frequency of the pulse, and how conductive the rocks, soil, and other elements are around you. Since most people do not know the makeup of their soil or rocks in the area, it's safe to say your electronics are not safe underground or in a cave. If you're close enough to a cave and have ready access to it, you can build small Faraday cages to take down there to further protect your electronics, or bury your Faraday cages, maybe in your backyard or whatever, and that will give you a little bit of added protection as well. Alright guys, that will do it for the first episode of the Pondering Prepper. The name is still up for grabs. We may change in the future. I really hope you found it useful, and I'd love to hear from you. Please give us your feedback in the comments below, or shoot me an email or whatever. Hit that subscribe button and smash the little bell next to it to get alerted when we upload our next episode. You keep the questions coming, and we'll keep answering them. And with that, until next time, remember, stay always ready.